and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Selena and today I'm going to be doing some meal prep in the kitchen. I've already got a head start. I've got some water on over behind me that's boiling. I have pre-peeled some potatoes and they are in here with some water. I'm just going to salt them and get them started to boil as well. We're going to be making 6 different dishes today and all of them will be portion controlled and frozen in individual portions. So I'm going to get this on the stove. That is on. I'm going to get my pasta started in the pot that is boiling behind me, and then I will continue to tell you what we're doing here today. This pasta that I'm using is it's like a mini penne. It's called panette. Okay, you can use whatever pasta you like if you do want to make this recipe. Whole bag in. So the potatoes that I've got boiling, I've got 1.5 kilos of potatoes. I've peeled them, I've chopped them, and I've just put some water on them. They're now salted and on to the boil. I am going to bake off some meatballs that I have here that I froze. So I made these yesterday and I just froze them, and they've even got a little bit of ice on them still. All these is some ground beef mince, and I used 1 kilo of beef mince, a teaspoon or 2 of mixed Italian herbs, salt and pepper, and then you can add a little bit of onion powder and garlic powder if that's something you want to do, and 1 egg. All I've done is mix those together, roll them into balls, pop them on a baking sheet with some parchment or baking paper, and I've popped those in the freezer overnight ready for me to cook off today. If you're wanting to do this with pre-cooked meatballs, you can skip this step altogether and just leave them in their frozen or pre-cooked state. But I'm going to get these in. I do have a few things going on this morning. Like I said, I've got 6, I believe, different dishes. So let me grab my piece of paper so I remember what we're actually making. We're going to be making a Swedish style meatball with mashed potato, a creamy gravy, and some broccoli. We're going to be making a chicken curry, just a basic chicken curry served with some rice and broccoli. And I'm going to be making a pesto pasta with sun-dried tomatoes. That's what that pasta was for. And we'll do some like grilled or roasted chicken to go with that. I'm doing a mushroom risotto in the Instant Pot, and I'm going to bake off some sweet potato to go with that. That one will be meat free. If you want to make that one and you wanted to add some meat, chicken goes really well with that. I'll also be making a chipotle beef mince with beans and things like that in it, and I'm going to serve that one with some corn and some rice, and a honey mustard chicken also served with broccoli and mash if I've got enough mashed potato. The honey mustard chicken can be served with rice, can be served with mashed potato or pasta, so you can use anything on that. They all go well together. I will be making all of these recipes at once, so but down below in the description box I'll make sure they're individually listed in case there's something you want to try at home. I will be making these and popping them in the freezer in individual portions. So what I've gone ahead and done is buy some of those Chinese style takeaway containers. And you can use whatever container you like. If you want to do this into glass containers or some other Tupperware style or something else that you've got going on at your place, by all means do that. I have used these. They're dishwasher safe, so I get multiple uses out of them before they get thrown out. And they're also just really handy for us because these meals, some of these will be like taken to work lunches, and sometimes those containers don't come home. I've noticed they end up in the bin. So this is an easier and cheaper way for me to do this. So yeah, we're going to be making this size, which I'm thinking is about a meal size. And I'm thinking something along the lines of, you know, those frozen meals that you can buy at the supermarket, they're individually boxed and they're individual meals. So the beauty of doing this is it's going to take a couple of minutes in the microwave to heat these up from frozen, and then dinner or lunch is served. You can make all of these recipes yourself and serve them in family style as well. So you could put all of what I put into my small plastic container into like a foil tray, wrap that up, and that's a family dinner ready to go. I wanted to do it this way today because it just works better for us at this particular time to have individual portions. And also we didn't want to have any leftovers. So the beauty of doing this when you are a family is that you can take out as many different dishes for dinner. So you can each be eating a different thing, or you can have all the same. It's up to you. The only thing is you're going to have a few more dishes to wash if you do use the individual portions, if that makes sense. So I have bought 48 containers because I had none left from the last time I did this. So I'm hoping to get 6 serves out of each one of these batches. I'm only making a single batch of each of these dishes today. So that means it's normally what I would make on a regular dinner for one of those things, all right? I want to get some rice on, so I'm going to be doing rice on the stove top. I also do rice in the Instant Pot because it's really easy. If you have a rice cooker, by all means use that as well. I'm going to be doing it on the stove top because my Instant Pot will be taken up with risotto in a moment. And yeah, I don't have a rice cooker, so I'm going to be doing it in here. Getting all of the accompaniments done at once is going to mean that this is ready to dish out as soon as the main component of the dish is ready. So we've got mashed potatoes happening behind us with the potatoes. We've got pasta happening. We've got pasta happening behind us as well, which I need to not forget about. And now we will have rice also. So excuse the mess, I have got a bowl here. This is going to have all of my peelings and composting components in it. And I've just got ingredients out ready to go. So in a pot for the rice, I'm going to do 3 cups of rice because if I end up having too much, that is fine. I like to have rice in my freezer pre-cooked anyway for nights when I need to do like burritos and things like that really quickly. So I've got 3 cups of rice. To this, I'm going to add 3.5 cups of water using the same cup that I used to measure the rice. So I'm just going to get the water in here now. So I've got my water in here and my rice. I've got a piece of foil that fits over the top and a snug fitting lid. The purpose of the foil is to make the lid fit tighter and be more of a sealed lid. All right. Now to make rice on the stovetop, there are a few different ways you can do it. The way I like to do it is I bring my rice up to a boil. As soon as it starts boiling, I turn it off completely, lid on with the foil on, and leave it for at least 10 minutes. When I come back to it, it should be fluffy. The grains should be separated and not gluggy or at all the water should be gone. Okay, so bring it to a boil and then lid on 10 minutes. In our case today, it won't be measured in 10 minutes. It'll be as soon as that rice comes to a boil, I'll just put the lid on, turn it off, and it will be ready when I'm ready to dish out the rice. So in the amount of time it took me to do those things, my pasta is done. I have drained it and given it a good rinse under cold water. I'm just sitting that in the pot in the colander so that it can drain off, but it shouldn't stick together. And I'm setting that aside. That's ready now for when we get to that stage. Okay, I can put my rice away. So now I'm going to chop up all the onions and carrots and things like that. And what I've got going on here, I thought I'd show you, is I've written out each of my recipes on a large Post-it note and I've put it on the pan I'll be cooking that in. This way, I know what needs to go in each dish and I can cook all of these things at the same time. You can, of course, make these individually one at a time. You need to do whatever works best for you, but I'm just going to do it this way today because it's going to save me some time. I'm already chopping onions anyway, so I'm going to just dish them out into the pot that they need to belong in. Okay, so I've got my little post-its here. And I know that I need 1 onion for every one of these dishes. So I counted wrong. I need 5 onions because I've actually got 5 dishes here that are going to need onion. And they are all going to be diced. And if you had one of those onion dicing containers where you just put your onion in and it dices it for you, that would be super handy too. I don't have one of those. I am just going to be dicing my onion by hand. All right, onions are diced and they are all in the pots that they belong in, as you can see. So I've got my little post-its in front of each one just to make sure I'm going to put the right ingredients into each pot and I remember which one belongs to which. So we've got our pesto pasta sauce going into this one. Chipotle beef is going in that one, chicken curry, honey mustard chicken, and over here this is the instant pot for the risotto. I'm going to need some carrots for the curry and also the honey mustard chicken. The carrots will be sliced and I've just got some gnarly carrots out of our garden. So I'm going to give them a good peel. They have been washed. I'm going to use about 2 carrots per dish today. And I'm cutting mine on an angle, as you can see. That's just because I like the way that it looks. Okay, carrots done, onions done. I'm just going to check on the potatoes and on the rice because we don't want to forget about these things now that we've already put them on. The potatoes are boiling, I can see that just by looking at the pot. I'm just going to get a knife. So you can tell when your mashed potato is ready because you put a knife through it and it has no resistance at all. It's lovely and soft. So they're not quite done. The rice, I'm just going to have a look under the lid. And that one is done, so I've just turned it off and left it there. The lid is already on, so that will be ready when I'm ready. And the potatoes, we're just going to have to keep an eye on those. So while I'm in the throes of peeling and chopping vegetables, I'm going to get this little pan here ready for some sweet potato. I did pick sweet potato yesterday for this recipe, and I noticed that a lot of my sweet potatoes have started to get the worms coming through. I think I may have left my sweet potato in the ground for a little too long. So I've tried to grab what I could. I've tried to grab what I could out of the garden that hadn't been eaten. All my big ones were eaten out by the worms. So I'm thinking leaving my sweet potato mature in the ground for the whole of summer, especially a humid summer like we've had, may not have been the smartest choice, but that's okay. We learn these things as we go, and the sweet potato, I'll have enough here. And if I don't, we can always add some pumpkin or something like that if we need to. Hopefully I'm going to get what I want out of the ones I was able to pick. I had some really beautiful large ones out there, but yeah, they were very disappointing when I dug up the other side of it and saw that it was actually hollow, thanks to worms. Don't forget about the meatballs that are in the oven either, if you are making this along with me. So what sweet potato I do have, I'm just going to dice up into smallish sort of pieces, straight into a pan with some olive oil. These will be going into the oven. Give them another good drizzle. Salt and pepper. I'm going to pop that into the oven. That's going into the oven, and I'll keep an eye on my meatballs and the sweet potato at the same time, and then we'll move on to finishing off what these other dishes here need before we can start to cook them. So I need to chop up some capsicum. I want some sliced capsicum for my honey mustard chicken, and I want some diced capsicum for the chipotle beef. I've got a red and a green. You can use whatever you like. I'm going to use about half of each. And I did buy these. You can probably tell by how large they are compared to what you would have seen me grow here, but that's okay. I didn't have enough growing to make these dishes today, so I did just buy some capsicum. So for the honey mustard chicken, I'm just going to slice my capsicum and set it aside in a little bowl, because I'll be adding that to the dish a little later on. And I'm going to add a little bit more to that. I may end up using 1.5 capsicums all up. Okay. But the Mexican or the chipotle beef, we're going straight into that pot. So when I was coming up with these dishes, what I wanted to make today for the 6 different dishes that I wanted to make, I tried to think of things that were going to use like ingredients. So I'm using cheap cuts of meat in that I'm using chicken breast and I'm using just beef mince. I'm using flavours that all sort of end up different but using the same ingredients. So carrots, capsicums, onions, things like that. So my potatoes are lovely and soft. They're boiled, ready to go. So what I'm going to do is just drain them off and let them steam themselves dry. So I won't be rinsing them or anything like that. I'm just going to pop them in the sink into a colander and let those potatoes steam themselves dry, and then pop them straight back into that pot with some butter so that can melt in there as well. There we go. The potatoes are in a colander, just back over their pot. Now the pot is just simply so that they don't drip all over my stove, because I'm just going to set them behind me here. When I go to put them back in the pot with the butter, I will tip out any water that is in there. So that's just going to sit over there for now, just for a couple of minutes while I finish getting the ingredients into each of these dishes here so that we can get them started. The next thing they all need is some garlic, and it's about 2 cloves of garlic per dish. So we just want to grate that into each one of these pots. So if you're using like jarred garlic or measured out garlic, you want about 1 teaspoon per clove. So 2 teaspoons for each of these recipes. Okay, they've all got some garlic. I'm just going to finish off adding some to the ones that only got 1. So my meatballs are ready. I've just pulled them out of the oven. They're just nicely golden brown. So again, if you were using meatballs that are already cooked, you don't need to go through that step. You just need to let them, you can use them frozen, because all these meals are going to end up in the freezer. We don't want to defrost things if they've already been frozen and cooked. So if you're making the Swedish meatballs at home and you've got pre-cooked meatballs, just go ahead and make the mashed potatoes, make the gravy, and then we can assemble it using frozen meatballs. Because mine weren't cooked and I needed to cook them, I have done that. They need to cool down because I don't want to be putting them in my containers nice and hot either. For my mushrooms risotto, I do want to have some sautéed caramelised mushrooms. So I'm going to just pan fry some of these off in my cast iron skillet here, just so that we get some of those really sort of caramelised flavoured mushrooms. The rest of them I'm going to put straight into the pot because they will be giving the risotto some flavour. So I'm going to just take probably 1.5 handfuls of mushrooms over into the skillet. The rest I'm actually going to chop up further so that they can go straight into the pot for the risotto, because these are the ones that we just want the flavour. We don't need to have large pieces. So in my risotto so far, all there is onion, garlic, and now some mushrooms. That one will be ready to get started in just a moment. But what we're going to do is get some oil, olive oil, nice heavy drizzle of olive oil, because mushrooms really soak up the fat. Get that straight on the stove and let it get some colour and some flavour happening in there. All right, we're ready to go with putting meat into each of these dishes next. So what I want to do is finish off my mashed potatoes because they're still warm, and then they can be set aside and they'll be ready to be portioned out. So for the mashed potato, they have drained off a little bit more, so I've got a little bit of liquid here. I'm just going to throw that out straight into our pot. And we've got about 3 tablespoons of butter. You can use anything between 2 and sort of 4. Butter is flavour. We want to hit it with some salt, a good couple of pinches, a little bit of pepper, and we're going to put some cream in here, but I want to get that starting to mash. The amount of cream you're going to need in your mashed potatoes is going to be dependent on the kind of potato that you've used as well. And you can substitute cream for milk or do a combination of cream and milk. Got some cream. This was frozen, so it has split, but there's nothing wrong with using it in cooking. It's just that the milk fat and the milk have split apart in the freezer. And I can hear my mushrooms behind me. Give them a toss. Okay, you want to get them caramelized on all sides. And just keep an eye on them. Don't forget you've still got sweet potato in the oven as well. And that mash is looking good. Okay, that's ready to go. I'm going to give it a taste just to make sure the flavour is good and that we don't need any more salt. That's perfect. I'm just going to cover that with foil and just set that one aside as well. They're starting to get some beautiful colour in there. I might just turn that off and leave that there. That can just rest in the oil. It's going to keep cooking a little bit, but we're not going to risk burning it. And we might get started on the risotto, get that one on in the Instant Pot before we move on to cooking off all these other dishes. So risotto is technically or traditionally made on the stovetop, and it is a very slow process, and it takes like 20 minutes of constant stirring as you add about a ladle full of stock at a time to get your rice to a consistency that is like al dente. I have found using the pressure cooker, the electric pressure cooker, so the Instant Pot, is a really effective way to get good risotto, restaurant style almost, without any of that stirring or hassle, okay? So if you want to make traditional risotto, I can run you through that another day, how to make a traditional stovetop risotto. But for today's risotto, we're going to be doing it in the Instant Pot. And it also requires about a cup of wine, white wine, when you're making this one. You can use red wine, depending on the flavour of risotto that you're making. I don't have any wine. I thought I did, but I don't. What I do have is some dehydrated mushrooms. So what I'm going to do is make a dehydrated mushroom rehydrated with some boiling water. So I've got about, 2 tablespoons of dehydrated mushrooms, which now reminds me I need to buy some mushrooms and dehydrate some more. In here, in this little heat safe container, I'm going to add about half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of boiling water, and I'm going to let that infuse its mushroom flavour into the water. I'm also going to add about a tablespoon of wine vinegar to that mushroom stock now, just to give the risotto a hint of that wine flavour that it's otherwise missing. If you don't have wine vinegar and you don't have wine, just leave it out, but it will be the missing component when you go to taste it and you're wondering, why isn't this exactly the same as a restaurant risotto? Well, it does require wine. And I'm using red wine vinegar because that's the only wine I've got. So you want about a tablespoon of that, give or take, into your little mushroom stock if you need to substitute some wine for stock. I'm also going to be using chicken stock. So I made chicken stock back in December, and we're going to need about 3 cups of chicken stock. If you don't have 3 cups of chicken stock, you can make it up with water, and that's what I'll be doing today. So I'm going to get the Instant Pot going, and we're going to make this one, get it done, and then we can move on to the next stage. I'm also going to have a quick look. Sweet potatoes look good. What I'm looking for with the sweet potato is a nice caramelized top. You want a nice roasted looking sweet potato. All right, so the Instant Pot, once I put that on, I don't want to be disturbing it. So I might just move it to a different spot where I'm going to cook that one. Okay, so we're on the other side of the kitchen, and I'm just going to put the insert pot inside my Instant Pot. Again, onions, garlic, and mushrooms are in here. You want about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You can use tallow, you can use whatever oil you like. And we want to set our Instant Pot to the saute setting and get that starting to give us some flavour. I'm going to open up my chicken stock here. We're just going to let that start to saute before we continue making the risotto. So our ingredients are starting to saute. We don't want them to stick to the base of the pot, and we do want to give this risotto lots of flavour. So I'm going to give that a good stir. We will be needing 2.5 cups of a short grain arborio style rice. I'm going to use that rice that I bought from Costco the other week. I haven't used it up to this point. I am storing it in a container. I think I told you I needed to go to Bunnings and get some. So this is the size container that I've got for my rices, and it holds that full bag nicely. I'm going to be using 2.5 cups of that. Once I'm happy that I've got some colour and flavour going on in this risotto base, so in my onion, garlic and mushroom, that's when I will add my rice. So it won't take too long. Just get that to a point where you've got a little bit of colour, at least translucency going on with your onions, and then you can add your rice to that. Okay, so that's smelling really good. We're going to add 2.5 cups of our rice. Stir that in really well. Don't let the grains stick to the pot, and you do want to make sure each one is coated in the oil that is in the bottom. You'll be able to see they sort of change colour a little bit. They get a bit glossy. We're still on the saute setting. This is smelling incredible already. Add your white wine now, or in this case, our mushroom stock with our wine vinegar. Make sure you loosen up anything that's in the bottom of the pot. Instant Pot does seem to have a problem when anything sticks to the base of it. So I always make sure the sides of my bowl are clear, because those bits of food need to be down in the bottom. And I always make sure the base of my pot is also feeling free and nothing is sticking. Okay. Now, to that, we want 3 cups of stock, and I will measure it because I don't think I've got quite 3. Oh no, we do. That is 3 cups right there. I didn't salt this stock when I made it, so I will be adding a little bit of salt. If you're using a pre-purchased stock, or you've salted your stock well when you made it, you don't need to add salt now, and I will be just adding a couple of pinches and a little bit of pepper. I am still on the saute mode. I'm making sure everything is released off the bottom. Turn the saute mode off. So now the pressure cooker's not on at all. Everything is submerged. You want to make sure you've got your rubber seal. You want to make sure your valve is set. You want to make sure your valve is set to sealing. Mine does that automatically for me. So, and the little knob actually broke off. But anyway, pressure cook 15 minutes on high. And that's all we need to do for this. We can get started on the other dishes. So that's on for 15 minutes on the pressure cook setting. So while my Instant Pot is over in the corner working hard for me getting that risotto done, we're going to finish off the Swedish meatballs because everything's actually done for those. And the meatballs have cooled down nicely. I want to get that packaged up and we can pop that one in the freezer and tick it off and call it finished. We need to make some gravy. Now you can make gravy using instant gravy mix, and you can also make gravy using butter and flour and add some stock to it, okay? I'm going to use the instant gravy mix today because I've got some. I need to use it up because it's getting a little bit older, so I want to get that used up. So what I want to do is add some water to a pot, okay? I'm going to add probably 2.5 to 3 cups of water to this pot, and then we'll add some gravy mix to it, and then from there we just need to thicken it up, okay? So in my pot, I haven't got anything yet, but I've got about 3.5 cups. I'm going to bring this up to about 4 cups of water and chicken stock mixed. You can use all stock if you want as well. The only reason I'm not is because I just don't have enough of it at the moment. I do need to make some more stock. We want to add a couple of tablespoons. This is just a Maggi gravy mix. And I'm going to add 3 really heaped dessert spoons, okay? Give it a good whisk. You don't want any lumps, and you certainly don't want any lumps before you start cooking. That looks good. Just going to get this on the stove and on a low simmer until it gets nice and thick. All right. I'm going to check on that sweet potato that we put in the oven. It's starting to look good. I need to test if it is tender or not. Not quite ready, that needs a couple more minutes. It's starting to get some nice colour, but it's just still a little firm on the inside. So I want that cooked a little bit more. We're going to cut some chicken for each of these dishes. I have allowed 2 chicken breasts per dish. If you want to add more chicken, by all means do so. I'm trying to keep this as economical as I can. I'm also using up what I already had in my freezer. So when I buy chicken, if I don't process it straight away and turn it into something else, I always just freeze it individual breasts in little zip bags like this. And that way I just take out whatever I need for the dish that I'm making at the time. And all of this chicken will be just diced up. Okay, I've given you incorrect information. We're dicing chicken for our curry and for our honey mustard chicken. For the pesto sun-dried tomato pasta, we're actually going to chuck some chicken in the oven. So I'm just going to cut 2 breasts into half long ways. All right. Got those on a baking tray. All right, 2 breasts. I've cut it long ways into a few pieces. Just want to give that a light drizzle with olive oil, some salt and pepper, a little bit of Italian herbs. So you can use whatever dried herbs you like. I'm just using the Italian herb blend that I buy. Yeah, so you can just use basil and oregano too if you prefer. So I'm just going to chuck that in the oven. The sweet potato should be done now. I need to keep an eye on this so I don't forget about it. And then we can keep an eye on your gravy as well. Sweet potato out. That is done, looking delicious. Give your gravy a stir. We want that to thicken up nicely. If you find that the gravy isn't thick enough, like it's a little bit too watery, you can mix a little more of your gravy powder with cold water in a jug and then pour that into your boiling mixture. Don't go adding the gravy powder directly to your hot liquid, because otherwise you're going to end up with the lumpy gravy, okay? All right, so my gravy is boiling away nicely. It's getting lovely and thick, but not too thick. I'm going to go ahead and add some cream. You probably want to add about half a cup of cream. If you want it a little lighter, go ahead and add a little more cream. I'll let that cool for a minute while I get these other dishes started so that we can start plating up those Swedish meatballs. So the risotto has gone off, it is ready. What we need to do is hit cancel and the quick release button. So that's what's going on now. Once the steam has released and the little toggle has dropped down, then we can add some butter and some Parmesan cheese and our risotto will be done. While the steam is releasing out of the risotto, I'm going to get all of these 4 dishes on. So we've got honey mustard chicken at the very end. This one at the back is the curry. This one at the front is the sun-dried tomato pesto cream sauce, and this one at the back will be the chipotle beef. So I just want to get those on low with some olive oil to get these all started. So a couple of tablespoons of olive oil in each one. So we've got all of them on here on the stove. I've just put some olive oil in each one. I've turned them on low. I want them to get started cooking. We're going to finish off this risotto because it's now done. So the little toggle has dropped down. It's now safe to open the lid. Open it away from you so you don't get burnt with the steam. All right, looking good. Give it a stir because things aren't going to be mixed once they are in here. We want to add a couple of tablespoons roughly of butter and some Parmesan cheese. A couple knobs of butter, get that in there, give it a good mix. It smells so yummy. I'm scraping the bottom of the pot as I stir. I don't want to turn it into a gluggy mess, but I do want to make sure I get everything off the base of the pot, mixed in, the mushrooms and the onions well incorporated into the rice. Okay. If you do find it looks a little dry, you can add a little bit more butter or even some olive oil. If you find that it's too wet, just add a little bit of butter, not too much, okay? If you use these quantities, it's not going to be too wet. It will be just like this. It could even have a little more liquid in it, to be honest. I could have probably added another half a cup of either stock, water, or wine. Otherwise, that is looking really good. So I also want to add about half a cup, roughly, of Parmesan cheese. All right. Mix that in well. Give this a taste. You want to make sure that it's well seasoned. You want to make sure that it's not too dry. Don't forget this is going to be going with some sweet potato and some of those sauteed sort of mushrooms as well. That's perfect. Doesn't need anything. I'm just going to make sure everything's mixed in well. And what I'm going to do is turn the stove off. I know I just turned it on and everything's gotten started. We're getting some colour, we're getting some sauteing happening, but because we're about to plate the risotto up, we're going to do the meatballs into the dishes as well. Then we will finish off those ones over there. So we can turn them off. They'll continue cooking on the stove. It's all good. So we're just going to do that and then come back. So as you can see behind me, we've got 4 dishes. They are still warm. They're still slightly cooking. And we've got everything else we're ready to plate up. So we're going to start just putting the risotto and the Swedish meatballs into their trays and getting those 2 finished. So I am hoping to get 6 out of each of these dishes that I've made today. So even better, I got 7 out of the risotto. Okay, these are estimated. Of course, if you wanted to be super specific, when it came to portion controlling, you could weigh out each of your containers so that you knew that you had the exact same amount in each one. I'm not being super specific here today, so I'm happy that they look close, so that will do. To finish off the risotto in here, what I want to do is just give it a really light drizzle of olive oil, a sprinkle of parmesan, and then we're going to add some of our mushrooms and our sweet potato. Very, very light sprinkle of parmesan because it does have the parmesan in it. Before I pop these in the freezer, I will pop a little bit of chives on top, but I need to run outside for those, and I haven't got the time right this second. So what I'm going to do is just pop the lids on these, set them aside, and we will plate up our Swedish meatballs. For our meatballs, I'm just going to give my little scooper a spray here with oil. Again, I'm hoping for 6. Any more than that is a bonus. And we don't want to use all of our mashed potato because we do need half of the mashed potato for one of the other dishes. I think it was the honey mustard chicken. And I can get a little bit more. Okay. So that's half the mashed potato. I'll set that aside when we plate up the next lot. Please don't stress that I'm using my hands either. These are meals for me and my family. I'm not selling these or anything like that. You don't need to stress. My hands are clean too. I don't show on camera, but I wash my hands many, many times when I'm cooking. All right, so we've got mashed potato. We want to get some broccoli, and I'm just using frozen veg. So you can use frozen vegetables. You can use canned vegetables if you like. You can also use fresh. I'm using frozen because I didn't have any broccoli growing, and in order to do these dishes I would need to blanch anything fresh anyway. Frozen vegetables have been pre-blanched and then pre-frozen, so I've just left them frozen. They don't need additional cooking. They have been blanched, so I might put them in last. I'm aiming for about 5 meatballs per dish. So my gravy isn't cold, but I do want to give it a nice big ladle full of gravy. And when these get heated up and you're ready to actually eat them, you can add just like a little tablespoon of cranberry or lingonberry jam. One of those Swedish style jams would go really nicely with this. And then I'm just going to pop a little bit of broccoli into each one, so that then when I serve them, when I reheat them, I should say, I'll just pop a little bit of jam in there and we are ready to go. Swedish meatballs are done. Lids on those. When you're freezing these meals, just pop them in the fridge to get really cold before you freeze them. You'll have less chance of your meal turning icy. If you put anything heated at all into your freezer, it's going to get icy. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. There we go, we've got our Swedish meatball and we've got our risotto, which I'm just going to pop some green chives on top of. And we got 7 of each, that's fantastic. I'm just going to let them cool a little longer because there's still a bit of heat in there. As you can see, there's steam. So I'm just going to let them cool at room temperature for probably 10 more minutes, then pop them in the fridge until I'm ready to freeze them. So I'm getting heat back going under each of these pots here. Now that we've finished with the first plating up, we can focus more on what we're actually doing over here. And I'll just show you how I have ordered them like this, where I've got the honey mustard is this one, The next one is the curry. So I've put them in order as to where they are on the stove. And that way I'm not going to lose place on which dish is what. I don't want to be putting curry powder in my honey mustard chicken, for example. So just want to get all of these going again, sauteing off, get the chicken cooked up a bit, and then we can add some flavours to make each of these dishes something different to each other. So the first one we're probably going to finish off will be this pesto sauce here, and I've got some sun-dried tomatoes in this olive oil, and I made these ones myself. That's why they've gone solid. So it's okay that we're going to get a bit of that olive oil in there, and we just want to get a few sun-dried tomatoes. So probably that many. That's probably 5 or 6 decent sun-dried tomatoes in there. And we also want to get some pesto. So you want to add probably one of those small jars of pesto. I'm going to add all of what I've got left here, which we're looking at about 3/4 of a cup of fresh made pesto. And this one is just on really low. If you had white wine, add some white wine to this. This is our chipotle beef over the back here, and that is looking good. I'm ready to add some beef mince. So I've got 1/2 kilo or 500 grams of beef mince, and I'm just going to add that. Get that to brown off as well. All right, over here, this is our curry. This is our chicken curry over here. We want to start adding some spices to that one. So I want to add a teaspoon of each of my spices. So a heaped teaspoon, I've got cumin, coriander, garam masala, and I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of curry powder. Give that a mix. We want those spices to toast. Don't forget we have chicken in the oven as well that's going to go with our pesto pasta. So you want to keep an eye on that. So our chicken is ready. I have done a quick little test. I'm just going to set that one aside. We want that to cool down. We will keep going. We will keep going over here. Once your toasted spices are becoming fragrant and beautiful, you want to add a can of tomato. That's just diced tomatoes. Turn that one down. I'm going to add a little bit of water, so 1/2 can of water. Add that to it. Give it a good mix and turn that one right down, okay? Over here, back this way. Okay, I'm going to turn this one off and add some cream. Again, this is the cream that was frozen. So you're wanting to add a full jug of cream, so about 600 mils roughly. I'm also going to add a jar of chicken stock, so that's about 1.5 cups of stock. Moving over here to our honey mustard. The chicken is cooking nicely. We're getting a little bit of colour. That's perfect. You don't want any more colour than that though. So to the honey mustard, we want to add some honey and some seeded mustard. We want to add about 1/4 cup roughly of honey, and seeded mustard is also called whole grain mustard, and we want to add a few, probably 3 large dessert spoon sized amounts. That we want to add some chicken stock to this one. So a full jar, that's again about 1.5 cups of chicken stock. Turn that down to a light simmer as well. So we need to add salt and pepper to each of these dishes. I'm not going to add it to the chipotle beef just yet. I'm just going to add a pinch of salt to all of them. And some pepper. So our honey mustard chicken and our chicken curry, they both need some cream. So I'm going to add one of these 250 ml containers of UHT cream. But you can add about half a bottle, 300 mils roughly, of the fresh cream if you're using that. To our honey mustard chicken, we also want to add one of those, about 300 mils if you had fresh cream. If not, one of these small UHT ones works well. Get all the cream out of it. We also need to add our capsicum to this one now that it's pretty well done. We don't want the capsicum getting too soft because, again, these things have to be microwaved, so they will be getting reheated and things will be cooked a little bit more. Okay. We do need to make sure the chicken's cooked and we do need to make sure the carrots are cooked. But otherwise, that one there, that's finished. It just needs to simmer, and we do need to give it a taste to make sure we're happy with the seasoning. But that is honey mustard chicken done. I'm going to make sure that is just on a simmer. We're going to finish off our chipotle beef because it is now ready to be given some spices. So that's looking good. We're getting a little bit of colour in that beef as well, which is perfect. I want to add some cumin, some coriander and some smoked paprika. I'm going to add 2 heaped teaspoons of each of those. And I might just add just a tiny bit more for the smoked paprika because we really like that flavour. I'm also going to add a little bit of chipotle, and this is the chipotle I've been able to get my hands on. It does have other ingredients in it, but they are just spices, and they're ones that I've used. So cumin, garlic, onion, salt, sumac, pepper, marjoram, and some lime leaves. So in addition to the chipotle. So I'm just going to use about half that packet, so not too much. Again, we want to toast off these spices. You want the spices to be toasted off. It releases the flavour and it doesn't give it that raw spice flavour. It just gives it the toasted deliciousness that you know and love. Once you're happy that those spices are toasted off, and you'll know that by the smell, but don't let them burn. Don't let them burn to the base of the pot. All right, we can add tomatoes. To that, I also want to add a can of beans. I've got mixed beans here. You can use black beans if you prefer. Mix all of that in really well. Again, season this with some salt and pepper, a good couple of pinches of each. So the last thing I'm going to be adding to the chipotle beef is some of our Caribbean hot sauce that we made together. I think it was the last video that I did actually. I haven't tasted it to know how spicy this one is. If you don't have Caribbean hot sauce, you can just add a little bit of salsa or some taco sauce of some kind, or you can leave it just as it is. Even with just a little bit more tomato would be perfect. So I am going to taste the Caribbean hot sauce before I add it, just so I know how spicy this one is. That one has some heat to it. That one's hot. I guess those chilies were hot this year, so I'm only going to add a little bit. All right. If this was a mild sauce, I would add anywhere up to a couple of tablespoons. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of this because it has some fire. It's delicious, don't get me wrong, it is absolutely delicious. It's just got some real heat to it. So here we go, that's going to give that chipotle beef a really nice kick actually. So turn that one off. We're going to give everything a taste. Everything needs a taste. We need to know if anything needs more seasoning, if it needs adjusting in some way. So chipotle beef. Just a little bit more salt. And that will be perfect. All right. Our cream sauce over here, pesto pasta cream, which we just want to reduce down a little bit. That one's perfect, needs nothing. Let's move on to the curry chicken. It's kind of like a butter chicken, I guess. I'm going to add a little bit more salt to that one. And finally, the honey mustard. That one's perfect. So I just want to add a little bit of salt to my curry. And they are done. We want them to thicken just slightly so the chipotle can be turned off and the curry can be turned off because they're both at the consistency I want them. The pasta sauce, the cream sauce, needs a little longer to reduce down a bit just so it thickens up slightly. You can thicken your sauce if you want to with a bit of corn flour and water slurry. I have found that sometimes microwaving that after, like in the reheating process, it can break it down and it doesn't hold up so well. So just keep that in mind if you do choose to do that. Alternatively, you just let it simmer and it's going to reduce and the flavours will concentrate, but also the thickness will come because of the cream in there. All right, and the same with the honey mustard, that just needs to thicken up just slightly before we can plate those up. So our cream sauce needs, or our pesto sauce I should say, needs some Parmesan cheese. I've got about half a cup added there. Give that a good stir, and then that should be ready to go into our pasta. Stir that in. We want the cheese to melt through. I have taken the other dishes off the heat. They're on the table. They are just cooling down. I don't want them to be burning hot when I go to plate them into their containers. So you do want to get things back to closer to room temperature. They're not going to be cold because I need to get this done today. But yeah, they won't be like boiling hot by the time I plate them up. Okay, so the easiest way I have found to mix your pasta and your cream sauce together is to pour them all into the one pot. So that's what I'm going to do. So cream sauce is in here. We want to add the pasta that we cooked earlier today, and it has stuck together even though I did rinse it, but that's okay. It still will taste amazing. Just give that a good mix. We want all the noodles covered in the cream sauce. And it did look a little runny when it was on the stove, but now that we've got the pasta into it, it's looking perfect as far as runniness goes. It's not too runny at all. Try and break up any of the clumps of noodle. So that is ready to get portioned up. I'll let that cool for just a minute. So I need to cut up our chicken breast that goes with the pasta, and it has cooled right down now as well. So again, aiming for 6. I'm actually thinking there will be at least 7. serves of the pasta. And I have turned the honey mustard dish off. It's no longer cooking, it's cooling behind me on the stove. And I did also run outside and grab some of those chives and some parsley for this one. So we are going to get more than 6. I think we will get 8 of our pasta, pesto pasta. And I've just got a little bit of parsley here that I am just going to snip over the top. So there we go, pesto pasta with some grilled chicken on top, or roast chicken I should say. And we got 8, which is fantastic, because I was hoping for 6, so anything more than 6 is like bonus meals. All right, checking our rice from earlier. See how the grains have separated? All right, it looks good. So we're going to have rice with our curry and with our beef. And for our beef, we're going to be adding some corn. Again, frozen corn. Let's see if we can get 6. One, a chili as well. Or I should say a chipotle beef. And just a bit of corn in each of these. When we go to serve the chipotle beef, we will put some sour cream or yogurt and probably some corn chips on the side. So there we go, a chipotle beef. We've got rice, we've got corn, and we've got a delicious savoury meat. I have enough rice here to do another dish if we get 7 out of the curry as well. If we don't, if this only gives us 6, then what I'll do is I'll just add that rice dispersed through all 6. And we are having broccoli with our curry. And this will get served with some papadums and a little bit of yogurt on top after it's reheated and ready to eat. But there we go, a basic butter chicken style curry. All right, honey mustard chicken with mash. We want broccoli in each of these. And I am going to add some corn as well. Just a little bit. There we go. Honey mustard chicken, corn, broccoli, and mashed potatoes. And we got 7 out of that as well, which is perfect. All right, there you go. All the meal prep done. So we have our Swedish meatballs with mash and broccoli. We have our butter style chicken curry. Some delicious mushroom risotto with sweet potato roasted on top. Some chipotle beef with rice and corn. Honey mustard chicken with mashed potato, broccoli, corn, And of course there's vegetables inside that one as well. And then we have our pesto, chicken and pasta. So thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that if you were looking for a way to do portion controlled freezer meals, that this one was helpful for you. We're going to enjoy having the convenience of these things for the next few weeks. Being that we are a large family, we will go through them pretty quickly, unfortunately, but it only took a couple of hours of my day. Now we've got portion controlled, ready to go meals. Everyone will enjoy the one that they want when they go to eat it. So have a fantastic week. I'm going to catch you next time, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.